New foreclosures jump 20% in October, a sign of more distress in the housing market. So the story says it's not a foreclosure tsunami like we saw in the Great Recession, but there are areas of concern.
Yes, there are. There are pockets of concern. And in the article, they kind of and they even share with you where the sellers are more motivated, if you will. You got to remember, during COVID, people were flush with cash because all the stimulus checks that went out, and people started to realize they could work remote. They were moving to new locations, particularly in the South. There's a little bit more freedom involved. So they were driving prices up, and they had to pay anything. And there's a lot of reasons for foreclosures ticking up. Now, this is a 20% jump in the rate of foreclosure. They're not foreclosing at 20%. I want to make sure we're pointing that out. However, this is a telltale sign that maybe we're in a rough housing market, which is what I said. For the last year, we would go through a correction in real estate, and now we're doing it for multiple reasons, Chip. People were not planning on how much their homeowners insurance on these properties was going to go up in cost. They were not understanding how much the tax bill was going to go up, as all the general authorities, local authorities, municipalities, and school boards are trying to look to cash in on this rise in real estate values. And we'll talk about that later in the show right here in Omaha. And so the expense of carrying a house, even if you paid cash for it, is getting extremely unreasonable. And I talk about right here. It costs me almost $30,000 a year to live in a home I already own. And to me, that's insane, and we're not in the worst spot. So there are places where people are really getting priced out of the homes because they can't afford it. And if they finance the house, if they did a low down payment, their mortgage payment is readjusting because of those new escrow payments. And so they're starting to walk away. And we saw this during the Great Financial Recession, where people did what we call strategic defaults. They just said, never mind. Jingle mail the keys back.
Well, you mentioned the South, and a companion headline to this is, it's not just Florida. Real estate boomtowns are going bust. Over the last few years, periodically, David, we look at top 10 lists of great places to live or great places to retire, usually dominated by the Sun Belt, but that seems to be changing.
Absolutely, because people are finding out they can retire in place and have a much more affordable retirement in many cases. The idea that you would move to a warmer climate, now the expense of the home, Texas in particular, Austin, Texas, what a boom they had. A lot of tech companies moved there. A lot of corporations have moved there. Elon Musk has moved most of his operations to Texas. So there was a boom there, but the problem is it drove the prices up. There's not enough houses. However, when the boom flushes out and those jobs get cut, as we've seen, Austin's down 28%. 28%. So if you bought a house a year ago for $800,000, which is about what it cost in Austin for just a middle-income neighborhood house, you're down almost $250,000 on the price of that home. They're selling now for $600 or $550 for the same house. So there's some pain out there, and either you can weather the storm and ride through it for multi-decades. And if you remember, I lived in Brevard County, Florida, when we had the Great Financial Recession, the Space Coast, as we call it, NASA. So over 100,000 jobs that paid over $100,000 a year disappeared from our county. 100,000 jobs.
That's a shockwave.
So we didn't go back 10 or 15%. Some neighborhoods, I lived in a neighborhood, a planned area called Vieira, a beautiful planned community in northern Brevard. We saw houses go back 60 and 75% from their peak in 2006 through 2010. And they're just now back to where they were. So it's taken 2 decades in some cases. So can real estate always go up? No. There are going to be pockets. And so right now, inside these articles, they're showing you Boise, Idaho. You wouldn't think of that as a hotbed, but that became a hotbed of people that were moving out of higher tax districts in Oregon, Washington State, California. They were moving to Boise, Idaho because they had freedoms, and it drove the prices up. Now those are going back down. So we're going to see this shift continue and more pain to come. Hey, if you're looking for more content like this, make sure you check out these videos, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you'll be notified when we publish more content that will help you retire smart. Thanks for watching.